talk. In the media, analysts are predicting that there's a recession coming in mid-2023. So today, we're going to be talking about that and what it might mean for small haulers. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Stef Talks Trash. I'm your host, Stephanie Valentic. Today, we're joined by Andy Weins, president of Camo Crew Junk Removal and Green Up Solutions. He's going to join us on this series on a regular basis to provide us with insight on small hauler operations. Welcome today, Andy. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. Doing awesome.
Great. So, as I mentioned, you're going to be joining me on a regular basis. So why don't you start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself, your company, and being a serial entrepreneur?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity here, Stephanie, to be part of this. We met a few months back at the Waste Expo. I'm obsessed with the waste industry. That's what it comes down to. My great-grandfather owned a scrapyard, and it's just been in my blood ever since. So a lot of what I've done in my entrepreneurial dream has been around the waste industry. I've had a junk removal company in some form or fashion since 2009. I branched out and started launching franchises as part of a franchise organization in 2016 after coming off a deployment. I had 10 franchises across the country at one point and then scaled back to an independent owned and operated junk removal company today. I also do consulting, not just consulting when it comes to electronic waste and scrap and things like that, but I also do consulting when it comes to other junk removal haulers and demo companies. So what that allows me to do is on a weekly basis, really see what's going on in the industry. And my biggest opportunity here is to provide a level of professionalism to junk removal industry. A lot of people that don't pay attention to the waste industry think, oh, it's just the sanitation guys, they're the trash guys, right? We have a negative connotation. And I feel very strongly that all of us in the waste industry, whether we're talking the large conglomerates like your WMs, Republics, and whatnot, or the individual owner-operator haulers, we're professionals. And the level of professionalism is something I really want to bring to the forefront. So I really appreciate this opportunity to be on this platform and talk about what it's like to be a small hauler on the day-to-day.
Oh, and I'm really excited to really dig in deep and get into the operations that small haulers, and the challenges that they're facing, with the current economic conditions. So, we just talked about your extensive background. Let's jump in right now and talk about these current economic conditions, the fiscal policy, global recession that's expected mid-2023. What have you personally observed in terms of inflationary pressures?
We're already there. I mean, to think that we're going into a recession, no, I'm not going to get into the politics and the math of it. The fact of the matter is we are in a recession. We raised our rates twice in a 12-month period, which we've never done. So we raised our rates January 1st of 2022 and raised again on July 1st because our three greatest costs have gone up, which is our employee force, our fuel, and then our disposal. And disposal's gone up because fuel's gone up. And then when fuel goes up, scrap goes down. So whether we're going to talk about the recession or not, in the junk removal space, we're already feeling the burden of the economic policies. And now you have the housing market that has really stabilized, if not started to take a downturn. And then we see that. We've already seen new houses slow down, and then we're starting, real estate slowing down. So we already anticipate a slower winter than normal. And so what I'm doing and what I recommend a lot of people do is you got to look at your cash, right? Cash is the fuel to your business. Cash is king. And look at, what do you want to do with your cash? Do you want to hold it? In race for April 1. April 1 is when our season kicks off. I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the north. When the snow flies, the junk doesn't move as often. So those are real considerations. And me in this time, I'm evaluating my cash. I'm looking to make headway right now while economic conditions kind of stabilize. But we're all really waiting until November. I mean, it's around the corner. We're 2 weeks away from an election. Maybe by the time this airs, the election's already happened. And that's not going to say one party or the other is going to be greater. It's going to just provide more stability. And then the economy is going to respond accordingly once they have more information.
So what measures have you and, other, junk removal professionals taken to remain resilient? You mentioned, raising your prices. What other things are you putting in place in terms of operations that, that's going to help you going forward?
So the biggest thing I've seen in operations is businesses not expanding this year. This was a makeup, if you will, right, for the last few years. And this was a good year. We did make money across the board. I've seen a lot of businesses make money. But normally this time of year, this is where it's let's spend and gear up for next year. I see more people scaling back. And, whether they're at that 2 or 3 truck cusp, where they're maybe running 3 trucks over the summer and their goal is to keep the 3 crews on over the winter. I've seen more of them where they're letting employees naturally, work themselves off the books and then not expand. And so that's what's going to come down to. Are you going to button down the hatch, keep your cash, and then also use the winter and these slower months to refine your processes? We are, operationally speaking, we're also keeping our scrap to the side. Scrap prices are pretty stable right now, but when it comes to copper, brass, things of that, we're not turning them in because often what happens when there's an economic downturn, precious metals go up. Not always the case. And so little things like that is the key. What I recommend all small haulers do is don't wait till January 1st to figure out how you did this year, right? You got to be monitoring your KPIs on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, because, with 8-10 weeks left in the year here, make the decisions. Are you going to spend some capital to make some investments and reduce your tax burden? Or are you going to keep the cash, pay the tax burden, but have the cash as your fuel for the first 2 quarters of next year, when, to your point, we will be deeper into this recession unless something significant happens.
And that's a really good point. Let's talk a little bit about another challenge is labor shortage. This is an issue affecting all industries. We can talk about the Great Recession, what unemployment numbers might look like in the next few months. Let's talk about how small haulers can address this. What are you doing? And what tell me about why you need to have a plan, or you're grasping at straws essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. The challenge we've seen typically in the winters, we let, there's natural attrition. Whether guys or girls are going back to school, or they get another opportunity, or they are going to school for the first time. We see that happen in fall and then in winter. And then when things get slower, we either lay people off, or some of the part-timers, the seasonal help, we have the guys that are kind of in and out, they naturally, fall off. We're not doing that this year. This year, we've done everything we could to keep people, and we're still in recruiting mode right now, because I want to invest in people right now so that our processes are there as we're going into the winter. So I have a more optimistic mindset. And the reason is I'm going to go focus on more of that commercial work, more of the work that's already in the chute, more of the deconstruction world. So whether you're in the junk removal space or you're hauling dumpsters, the remodeling is not going down. Remodeling is still doing very well. And so when you look at some more of those contracts, whether you're hauling dumpsters or doing the deconstruction yourself, I'm really leaning into that. So that's I'll give away my secret sauce here, right? I'm leaning into that here in Q4 and into Q1. I've already seen a spike because we anticipated this. So August, September, and then even now in October, we've been pushing to see where there was gaps within the commercial and residential deconstruction market. So that's what we're doing to uptick the revenue, but we're also recognizing that our expenses are going up. So it's about making smart decisions, being efficient, and taking this time. That's all great operationally, and then also with your current labor, we've all know this. You've got to take care of the guys you have. I can't stress that enough. Take care of the people you have. That's your greatest asset in this business. Whether they're hauling, buckets, or they're driving a truck, they are your greatest asset. And so that's been a challenge. So we do profit share. We've given bonuses. We do we call it MWR, so morale, welfare, and recreation. We do the things like that, taking care of our guys on a regular basis, because right now, tomorrow, if the guys don't show up, I lose my house. Right, that's the reality of being a small hauler. If we go a couple days without people not showing up, it has a great impact on the way that we live our lives.
So, now that we've talked about this and kind of talked, about the recession, labor shortages, inflation, what's going to go on. You did touch on this before, but let's get a little more in depth. Let's talk about Election Day, November 8th. I want to touch on that. It's really important. Midterm election, all 435 seats in the House of Representatives and 35 of the 100 seats in the Senate are up for grabs. What impact do you see in terms of policy that could be impacting small haulers?
Where do we even start?
Mhm.
We can go everything from open up the pipeline to not supporting the war in Ukraine, right? These major things, right? Fuel is the number one thing that impacts our economy, and especially those of us that are in the transportation sector of the economy. So individual policies, I don't know what's going to happen, because there's one of two, right? If the Democrats, continue to have, we continue to have one party government, that's going to be continued policies in that direction. But if the Republicans win, right, and now we have a 2-party government, they might cram some legislation in before, the seats turn over. And so in that regard, I'm not saying one's better than the other. Energy's, we know the energy sector is extremely unstable, which what's happening in Europe right now, and it's going to continue to be unstable, especially if we continue to, chew up our oil reserves here domestically. So the best policy I would think is we need more oil. We need more access to more oil here domestically and brought in. And we haven't been doing a great job at that, whether it's our relationships with OPEC, shutting down the pipeline and then burning up our own reserves. That's it. I mean, without getting into in-depth policy and really politics, those three things negatively impact our business. And like I said from the very top, the price of fuel, diesel, gas, whatever right, the price of fuel dictates our industry. It's that simple. We move things from left to right. If it costs more money to move them from left to right, our industry is unstable. And so anything we can do to have more access to stable oil, right, and domestic oil, that's what I'm all about.
And we touched on a lot of different topics today, and we're getting close to the end here. So now that we touched on the election, and I look forward to discussing it a little bit more once next month here, once it's over. What final takeaways or things that overarching message that you see that that small haulers need to address today and in the future? You talked about a little bit about this before, but what's the overall takeaway?
Know your numbers. That's it. Know your numbers, because we can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen, but what we can do is understand where we're at today, understand our business, understand what is controllable, and make decisions today that will not just survive, but thrive even when these outside economic conditions continue to change. So know your numbers and make data-driven decisions. That's one of the biggest challenges I've seen. I come from the waste man. I worked for WM for a number of years. They have access to all these tools and all this data. And then I worked. My father owns a business for 30 years. He doesn't watch his numbers. And when you have that big of a discrepancy, that is when you will fail, because you're making decisions without knowing information. So biggest thing for all the small haulers out there: know your numbers. Take this time as the seasonality starts to slow down. As you're getting ready to prepare taxes, take your time to know your numbers. Where do you make your money? Where do you spend your money? Where do your customers come from? What's going up, what's going down, and what are you going to do about it? Because that's the ultimate result, right? What actions are you going to take once you know that information?
Well, thank you so much, Andy, for joining me today. I look forward to touching base with you next month. It looks like that's all the time we have.
Yep.
Once again, Andy will be a regular on Stef Talks Trash, providing a monthly update on issues impacting small haulers. Don't forget to view this and other episodes on waste360.com. And remember, don't be trashy.